Hello and welcome to the history of Stargate. Today's episode we're going to be covering Goa'uld System Lord Hathor. And here we go. Hathor was the mate of Ra and the mother of Heru'ur, who was left stranded on Earth after the Ta'ri rebellion. She later became imprisoned in her sarcophagus for centuries before being set free, albeit accidentally, in 1997, leaving Earth in the aftermath of her failure to claim the SGC for herself. Hathor attempted to rebuild her power base, and did so, finally achieving the rank of System Lord, before being killed for good during a confrontation with SG1 2 years later in 1999. Once a Goa'uld with her own empire, Hathor originally ruled from her place of power on Ta Netcher. The local population, the Netchirans, were anthropomorphic beings who worshipped Hathor as a god, with even more devotion than is seen in other races. She eventually entered into an alliance with Ra, becoming his queen. Ra, not wanting his queen to have her own base of power, forced her to leave Ta Netcher for good, to join him on Earth, although the Netchirans did not take her absence lightly, committing mass suicide and performing rituals to bring her back through the Stargate. It was because of this alliance that Hathor lost most of her independence and freedom, both of which she valued dearly, which led to her secretly loathing Ra. Little is known of Hathor's history after this time until the Goa'ulds ruled over the Ta'ri world of Earth. But legends hold that she was supposedly the daughter of Ra, perhaps though his queen Ajira and mother of Heru'ur. It was a lesser-known fact that she also took the persona of Sekhmet, the Eye of Ra, which led to some confusion as to what her history actually entailed, due to the fact that at least two other Goa'ulds, Bessinet and Sekhmet herself, used that name. It was thought that the cult of Hathor's personality spread over the earth to Greece, Italy, Mesopotamia, and beyond, inspiring the myths of, or perhaps being modeled by, Aphrodite, Venus, and Ishtar as the love goddess, and figures of female beauty. Hathor was known to control both her enemies and her friends through the use of pleasure principle as well as nishta, and which meant that she gave people what they wanted, within reason, so that they would follow her anywhere. She generally encouraged celebrations, sports competitions, and festivals in her own honor, as well as the honor of her beloved hosts, whenever she arrived on new planets, which she used to gather information. On a more personal level, however, she often used Nishta to control human males that served her, rendering them very suggestible to her orders and willing to trust her where they usually would not. She would only use this addition to her own ability as a liar and fabricator, and would often tell the audience whatever they wanted to hear, regardless if she would deliver or not. Hathor's most recent host itself was one of the factors responsible for the Greek myth of Andromeda. The myth being that a princess was fed to a serpent in order to pay for her mother's vanity. In actuality, the mother of Hathor's host, a queen who ruled over Asia Minor, refused to pay tribute to Hathor during a festival in her honor, believing that her own military could defeat Hathor's Jaffa in combat. Showing her species' violent nature, Hathor accepted the challenge and wiped the queen's armies out, and demanded the queen's daughter as a payment for the outrage. Although the princess's fiancé attempted to rescue her, he was unable to do so, and Hathor soon took the young woman as her new host, ultimately taking the fiancé as one of her many consorts. During this time of power, Hathor took humans from Mesoamerica and transplanted them onto another world. She used these people to mine naquita for her as well as other materials which were used in starship construction, and let her priests rule over the planet in her absence. This system would last for thousands of years, the people prospering in Hathor's absence and mining vast amounts of resources for her. In the following centuries, Hathor became known throughout Western culture, becoming well loved in her own role as Hathor, but also hated for her alternate identity as Sekhmet. Indeed, at one point in time, Ra supposedly sent Hathor as Sekhmet to destroy mankind. If this is true, it is unknown if Hathor simply chose to disobey the order, or Ra changed his mind at a later date. What is known for sure is that Hathor chose to disagree with much of Ra's decisions, leaving her outside the power structure of the Goa'uld. And it is rumored that she also attempted at least one coup, Because of this, Hathor either left or was evicted from Egypt and made her way to pre-Mayan Mexico, which resulted in her being trapped on Earth after the Tari Rebellion. There, she became known as the goddess Axel, and for a time was worshipped by the natives. Her luck seemed to run out, however, as another coup, this time aimed at Hathor herself, happened within her priesthood, with one of the priestesses becoming fearful of Hathor's influence on the people. As such, the priestess concocted a scheme to save the goddess, trapping her inside her sarcophagus in 332 BC. And thus preventing Hathor from influencing the populace. Hathor lay trapped, or rather asleep, in the sarcophagus for over 2,000 years until the year 1997 when the archaeologists unearthed the sarcophagus. Flabbergasted that it bore Egyptian hieroglyphs, the archaeologists cited Dr. Daniel Jackson's outlandish theories and his expertise on ancient Egypt. As the archaeologists continued to postulate, they inadvertently opened the sarcophagus, unknowingly awakening Hathor, who then murdered them with her own hand device and escaped her tomb unseen. Uncertain as to the state of the Goa'uld Empire, Hathor used a piece of Goa'uld technology to locate the nearest source of concentrated naquadah, drawing her to the Stargate, now located in Cheyenne Mountain. She trekked on foot for over 1,000 miles, seducing and tricking her way across the American border, before finally reaching Colorado and the Stargate. Making her way into Stargate Command, Hathor informed the personnel that she was an enemy of Ra, and thus taken into custody. Initially regarded as a kook, her familiarity with the Stargate quickly changed the minds of the SGC. Claiming that she wanted to help the Tari, she soon learned that Ra was dead, among others, and so launched an attempt to conquer Earth. Using Nishtah pheromones that her body naturally secreted, she managed to subject the males at the SGC, including General Hammond and Colonel O'Neill, and form them into being her servants and puppets while also leaving the females of the base unaffected. Under her influence, Daniel was used to spawn Goa'uld larvae to be used to create an army of Jaffa, and the females of the facility were locked away. In addition to this, she used her Goa'uld bodice to transform O'Neill into her first new Jaffa, planning to make him her first prime. This attempt to gain a power base on Earth was thwarted by Captain Carter, Dr. Janet Fraser, and teal'c of Chulak, who as a Jaffa was immune to the pheromones, and a handful of capable female airmen and marines, who exterminated Hathor's infant larvae and destroyed her sarcophagus. However, Hathor managed to escape through the Stargate, fleeing to Chulak in order to start up a new empire. Returning to planets which had once been under her control, Hathor slowly built up her resources and intelligence, learning that much had changed during her absence. She managed to build up the ranks of her Jaffa by seducing and stealing those who had once been loyal to the current system lords, including Apophis and Hathor's own son Heru'ur, which meant that she could no longer call on her family for help. The worlds she stole these Jaffas away from were remote enough not to attract any direct attention from the system lords, ensuring her continued survival. Although she was pleased by the death of Ra, Hathor remained cautious about making any direct attempts for power, and so tried not to make any direct moves against the current hierarchy. She actively sought the means to obtain her own Hatoks, as well as weapons and technology, so she could one day join the ranks of the System Lords. Hathor soon made contact with Jabali, learning that the planet still worshipped her as their goddess, and so resumed her control over the people once more. Though previously her interest in the planet had been for resources, she now was more invested with the populace. Converting many of them into her new Jaffa, she used others as simple cannon fodder in her forays against the other system lords. It was on this planet that she chose to house her sarcophagus, most of her combat weapons, and an invisibility device which she had somehow acquired. One of the other planets which she discovered during her expansion was Neron, a planet formerly under the control of Nirti. Nirti had given up on the planet when the population showed a vulnerability to toxins, but left behind a legacy of a technologically advanced healing goddess whose sole wish was to help the people, which Hathor was quick to take advantage of. Quickly establishing control of that planet, she soon started to recruit the population into her army. She managed to keep the population in control largely by establishing a series of sports and music festivals, which she also used to select her new pharaohs. Hathor also selected the planet Eskel as one of her new bases due to its remote location and lack of any population. building a large Egyptian-style base, which contained a fake version of the SGC inside, as she did not know precisely what the SGC looked like from her limited experience inside. She chose to make it resemble a futuristic SGC of the year 2077. Adding her own advances to the base, supposedly the result of a Tok'ra-Tori alliance. The false base was complete as she was able to make it, though there were several doors which led to nowhere. To protect this base, she placed a shield on the planet, which extended around the structure in every direction, and even reached underground to cover the Tok'ra tunnels, which she was not aware existed. It was during this time that Hathor somehow earned herself the rank of System Lord, which had long eluded her. Nearly 2 years after escaping from the SGC, she managed to capture Colonel Jack O'Neill, Captain Carter, and Dr. Daniel Jackson, and put her new base to use, having them wake up isolated from each other. They were each told by their hosts that they had been cryogenically suspended for 80 years at the SGC, and that all their teammates were dead. Their hosts attempted to glean information about Earth's allies and enemies by accessing their memories through a memory recall device. Hathor planning to use this information to steal technologies from these allies. O'Neill suspected something was wrong, and feigning unconsciousness, he soon overheard the host speaking in Goa'uld. Alone with one technician, he escaped and located his teammates along the way, discovering that this was not the SGC but a replica. Finding the gate room, they were confronted by Hathor and her Jaffa. She explained to them that since she had limited knowledge on the state of the Goa'uld Empire, she had hoped to use their memories to acquire an advantage. Her plan failed, and she decided to implant one of them with a Goa'uld. O'Neill was chosen to be Hathor's new pharaoh. Unfrozen from the stasis pod, O'Neill was implanted with Hathor's Goa'uld symbiote, and Carter and Daniel were carted away. However, a female Goa'uld working with teal'c turned out to be a Tok'ra operative and stepped in to save O'Neill by quickly placing him into cryogenic suspension, telling him it would prevent the Goa'uld from implanting itself and kill it. Hathor happened upon the scene and attacked Dr. Sarah Raleigh for her betrayal. Carter and Daniel, in the meantime, were rescued by Colonel Robert Makepeace and his team. Carter went after O'Neill and found the injured Tok'ra woman, who told her how to free O'Neill from suspension. Hathor attacked Carter, but O'Neill awoke in time, grabbing Hathor while yelling that they would like her to go away before sending Hathor to her death by dumping her into the cryogenic tank, finally ending Hathor's regime for good. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Stargate. Special thanks to the Stargate Wiki, SG Command, and all contributors for all information you heard today. Also, special thanks to my Patreons. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you can. If you have, thank you. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.